The Bar-Boljare Highway was supposed to be Montenegro's road to the future. A 170-kilometer, 106-mile highway from the port of Bar to the Serbian border at Boljare, a shining link between the Adriatic and the Balkans. When it launched, leaders called it the jewel of China's Belt and Road Initiative, with a total investment of $3 billion, a project that would bring jobs, tourism, and trade. A shortcut to Europe, they said, and maybe even to the European Union. But 10 years later, this road tells a different story. One of Tofu-Dreg scandals, a mountain of debt, a road to nowhere, and a nation's dissolution. This highway began as a simple, powerful idea. Stitch Montenegro together from sea to border, and open a faster road to the rest of Europe. The plan was to run a modern motorway from the port of Bar on the Adriatic up to Boljare at the Serbian frontier. The Montenegrin link in the larger Belgrade-Bar route. On paper, it would cut the Podgorica-Belgrade drive from 7 or 8 hours to 4 or 5, turning mountain bottlenecks into a smooth flow of people and goods. The political green light came in 2014, when the project was officially launched. Construction on the first leg, the Smokovac-Matej-Shevo stretch, started in May 2015. Who would build it? Phase 1 was awarded directly to China Road and Bridge Corporation, CRBC, a major state-owned company. It would push through harsh mountain terrain, with heavy tunneling and long-span bridges. Later phases, like Matej-Shevo and Drievica, moved to competitive bidding, drawing interest from CRBC's parent, CCCC, and Western firms, under the eye of Montenegro's Ministry of Transport and international lenders. The vision behind all this was straightforward. Grow the economy, especially in the north. Speed up travel at home and to Serbia. Meet European Union rules, plug into Europe's transport map, and raise Montenegro's profile as a Western Balkans hub. China's state-owned The Global Times even boasted that the China-built highway helps tame Montenegro's canyon of death and brings economic benefits to Montenegro. But beneath the grand public relations, promises and gleaming plans lay cracks that would soon widen. Let us dive into the first and probably the biggest problem of the project: the Tofu-Dreg quality construction. Phase 1 became a case study in how a rushed finish invites failure. Slated for 2019, it opened 3 years late, on July 13, 2022. The bill swelled from €809 million to over €1 billion, and the savings showed up in thin reinforcement, sloppy pours, and weak waterproofing. The road did not just cost more, it performed worse. Within months, cracks appeared across bridges and viaducts, including the 0.6-mile Moracha Bridge. By late 2022, fissures stretched centimeters wide. Engineers traced the damage to rushed corner-cut work during the final push to meet deadlines. Earlier studies had warned of weak seismic protection, but those fixes never came. Instead, sloppy concrete pours left hollow spots in tunnels, rainwater seeped through, and every storm deepened the scars. Ines Mistadovic, from Action for Social Justice, said in her report, "One of the problems is the appearance of cracks on unreinforced segments of the inner lining at the crown of the tunnels, first observed in the Klopot and Vilik tunnels, and, to a lesser extent, recorded in other tunnels as well." Despite CRBC's claim, the cracks did not threaten structural stability. By midsummer, the company still had not investigated the cause, as requested by the Works Control Commission and the project engineer. The weak points kept multiplying. In terrain where quakes, liquefaction, and rockfall are routine risks, many of the 16 tunnels, 6.2 miles total, and 20 bridges were under-anchored and under-reinforced. Maintenance spending exploded. By mid-2025, more than €50 million had gone to urgent repairs, grouting cracks, adding waterproofing, shoring up structures, far beyond the expected €5 to €10 million a year. Sections like the Vietanic Tunnel even saw temporary closures in 2024, disrupting traffic and draining public patience. The nickname followed. Local media began calling it the Highway to Hell, a jab at the perilous driving and the project's drag on the economy. You are probably thinking, poor quality aside, how usable is this highway for drivers? Here is the rub. It is not really. The multi-lane road sprints through the mountains in under 1 hour, all tunnels and bridges, and then it just stops. For that short distance, the toll bites, so the traffic is thin. Once you exit, it is back to dusty, bumpy lanes. The same old roads that remind drivers what life was like before the future arrived. Former Justice Minister Dragan Soth even admitted to NPR that, "We make a joke. It is a highway from nothing to nothing." By now, the pattern was clear. Flimsy construction habits colliding with weak oversight. Montenegro is trying to pivot. Later phases are moving under European Union-aligned rules and tighter tenders. But Phase 1's legacy, ballooning costs, bruised institutions, and a public that does not trust the pavement beneath its wheels, still lingers, a warning etched into concrete. From crumbling concrete to something harder to mend, a wounded river. In the heart of Montenegro runs the Tara, UNESCO-protected, the tear of Europe, carving the deepest canyon on the continent. It was meant to be safeguarded for generations. Instead, the first stretch turned this jewel into a cautionary tale. Work on the first stretch began in 2015, despite the environmental impact assessment not being approved until December that year. From the start, CRBC's practices scarred the river. Cement, gravel, and construction waste were dumped into the Tara and its tributaries. Trucks tipped debris into the riverbed. Cement-laden water flowed through makeshift pipes. Clear turquoise turned to a grey, choking sludge that stretched for miles, smothering habitats and wiping out rare species like the hucken. The Moracha River, a key tributary, was choked by debris, altering flows and raising flood risks. NGOs such as MANS in the Tara and Moracha Fishing Club documented violations, waste dumped near the river, silt barriers, and treatment systems missing, mitigation measures ignored, despite the 2015 Environmental Impact Assessment's clear prohibitions. In 2018, locals sued. In 2021, a Montenegrin court ruled against CRBC, ordering €200,000 in damages for destroyed fish stocks and ecosystems. It was a moral victory, not a full remedy. CRBC's pledged cleanups, riverbed clearing, bank stabilization remained superficial. By 2024, Balkan Insight reported that CRBC has not yet repaired the damage done by highway construction to Tara River. This is not just an environmental tragedy. It is a betrayal of national heritage and a warning for any country weighing glossy promises against weak oversight. Cleanup is now estimated in the tens of millions, far beyond the token damages awarded. The river was not the only thing poisoned. The books were too. The Bar-Boljare Highway was sold as a gateway to prosperity. What followed was a pattern of opaque deals and political favors. From the start, the initial €809 million contract went to CRBC without an open tender, breaking Montenegro's own procurement rules and clashing with European Union transparency standards. The contract was signed in 2014 under then Prime Minister Milo Đukanović, and red flags went up immediately. Dig deeper, and the sums get murkier. Investigations by MANS traced roughly €400 million to local subcontractors tied to Đukanovic's circle, firms like BMAX and Sjevna. Many won work without competitive bids or clear qualifications. Costs rose, so did profits for insiders. Meanwhile, value-added tax exemptions padded the deal, starving the budget of revenue, and independent audits were nowhere to be found. Critics called it a graft paradise, as money flowed to politically connected subcontractors and value-added tax exemptions eroded revenue. As fiscal pressure mounted, a new government declassified core documents, revealing how feasibility warnings were sidelined, subcontractors were chosen without transparent criteria, and payments flowed for incomplete or substandard work. Deputy Prime Minister Dritan Abazović called it what many suspected, a corrupt bargain that mortgaged the country's future. The numbers kept staining the ledger. By 2024, CRBC ranked as Montenegro's second-largest tax debtor, with millions in unpaid taxes and penalties. Non-governmental organizations pressed for full disclosure of every invoice, contract, and change order. European Union-backed monitors in 2024 echoed the alarm. The project structure created huge opportunities for corruption, mirroring patterns seen in other Belt and Road Initiative builds across the Balkans. Today, as Phase 2 shifts toward EU and EBRD financing, the message is blunt. Without open tenders, strict audits, and real accountability, megaprojects become machines for rent-seeking. The highway was meant to unite a country. The corruption around it divided it, between those who paid and those who got paid. Behind the rebar and asphalt stood Beijing's terms. China's Exim Bank was not just a lender. It set the terms, the contractor, and the leverage. In 2014, Montenegro signed for €944 million, at 2% over 20 years, with a 5-year grace period, cheap on paper, costly in practice. The loan tied Montenegro to CRBC, locking out competition and accountability from day one. For a country with a €3.5 billion economy, that was Beijing's thumb on the scale. Its money, its company, its rules. Then came the classic Belt and Road Initiative squeeze. Delays, overruns, and extras pushed Phase 1 toward €1 billion. CRBC's workmanship, thin reinforcement, sloppy pours, leaky tunnels, translated into more invoices and fewer options. Every defect became a change order. Every fix deepened dependence. By 2021, Montenegro missed a €45 million payment. Total exposure to China neared €1 billion, and public debt blew past 90% of gross domestic product. Beijing could keep collecting. Montenegrins kept paying. As of October 2025, Montenegro still owes €700 to €800 million to China, with payments into the 2030s. China's own feasibility warnings were ignored, while its state firms were paid. Projections from 2006 and 2012 never justified the price, yet the loan dictated the playbook. Chinese financing, Chinese builder, limited transparency. Trade with China rose to about €1,200 million by 2024, alongside Beijing's leverage, as budgets bent to debt service and repairs to Chinese-made defects. Yes, Phase 1 moves people, over 3 million vehicles, but tolls bring in only €5 to €6 million a year. That barely dents maintenance, let alone the debt. The road buys speed, the loan buys a bill that outlasts governments. So Montenegro is pivoting. Phase 2 comes with EU and EBRD rules, about €350 million committed in 2025. China's money came as a pipeline, Beijing's bank, builder, priorities. The result, a faster highway and a slower future budget. Take a tide loan like that, and you are not just buying concrete, you are renting sovereignty. So where does that leave Montenegro? What did the country actually get? When Phase 1 of the Bar-Boljare Highway finally opened on July 13, 2022, it was more than asphalt and bridges. It was the country's first tangible piece of its billion-euro gamble. After years of scandals, delays, and ballooning costs, the Smokovac to Mataševo stretch, carved through the mountains, offered a glimpse of what might have been. By October 2025, for many locals, the change was real. Trips from Podgorica to Kološin were nearly an hour shorter, and northern towns saw tourists and traders they had not seen in decades. Yet beneath the progress lies a sobering truth: the highway remains an economic mirage. Declassified feasibility studies from 2006 and 2012 warned that projected traffic was too low to justify such a massive investment. The 10% toll hike in 2025, raising fees to €5.5 to €7.7, angered drivers already frustrated by cracks, leaks, and closures. For all its visual grandeur, the road has earned an unflattering nickname among economists: a white elephant, impressive to look at but impossible to afford. Looking ahead, Montenegro is trying to change course. Phase 2, the 22-kilometer, 14-mile Mataševo to Andrijevica segment, marks a clean break from Beijing's model. Backed by a €350 million EU-funded package, including €200 million from the EBRD and €150 million in grants, it carries strict conditions for transparency, environmental protection, and quality control. In August 2025, 5 bidders made the shortlist: Cengiz Azvit, China Communications Construction Company, Power China Stekel, Shandong Foreign Economic and Technical Cooperation Shandong Luqiao Group, and Ballast Nedam Rek Honor. The tender, originally due in September, was extended to October 20th, with construction now expected to start in early 2026, under a 5-year timeline. Beyond that, Phases 3 and 4, covering the Andrijevica to Boljare and Bar to Smokovac links, are still on the drawing board. A €3,600,000 design contract for Phase 3 was signed in February 2025, but full funding is not yet secured. If all goes to plan, the full 106-mile highway could be completed by 2030 to 2032. For now, Montenegro has one working leg of its road to the future, and a mountain of lessons behind it. The shift to EU financing offers hope for cleaner governance and better engineering, but Phase 1 shadow still stretches across every tunnel and bridge that follows. In the end, the Bar-Boljare Highway delivered speed, but also cracks, debt, and a river that may never heal. It showed how easy money can silence hard questions, how closed doors breed shoddy work, and how the bill always finds its way back to the public. Montenegro is turning to EU rules for the next phases, chasing the road it wanted from the start: safe, transparent, and built to last. Whether that promise holds will depend on what happens in the tender room, not the ribbon cutting. This story isn't only about concrete, it's about choices. And the next stretch will tell us if the country finally learned how to build a road to the future, without losing itself along the way.